And a top focus, U.S. President Donald Trump has blamed former U.S. President Joe Biden for the U.S. economy's contraction in the first quarter. A new Commerce Department report shows the GDP of the United States of America has shrunk by 0.3%, marking the first decline since the pandemic. Trump called it, quote-unquote, the Biden economy, saying the damage was done before his term began. He pointed to Biden's trade policies and record deficit, but despite the numbers, Trump also claimed credit for what he called strong private sector growth. Meanwhile, Trump has also reignited his feud with Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Speaking at a White House event, Trump criticized Powell's handling of interest rates. He suggested his own business experience gives him a better grasp of the economy. Trump's second term has seen market instability with his tariffs and rate pressure rattling investors. The administration continues to face criticism as economic uncertainty grows. What does this mean for the United States of America? We take that conversation forward. I have with me on the broadcast Mr. Arvind Mahajan, Lamar Savings Professor of Finance, Texas A&M University. Professor Mahajan, I of course have to begin by asking you, is Donald Trump being able to convince the people of the United States of America that the slump in the GDP in his first quarter as president is because of the former President Biden and not because of the fact that there has been consequences of the tariffs and the tariff war that Donald Trump started a few months into him taking oath?
That's a great question. As you know, economy is a very complex phenomena. And as you would expect, a sitting president will take credit for anything good which happens and lay blame on anything bad which happens on the previous administration. I think that is really the case here. It'll be hard pressed for one to believe that what we are observing right now is only because of the Biden administration policies and has nothing to do with the tariffs. That'll be a hard sell.
Okay, Professor Mahajan, I'd also like to understand from you, could the slump in the GDP or a little bit of an impact in the economy been because there is now reports that there are more and more imports that came in before the tariffs were finalized, or rather before the tariffs were announced, that there was a lot of apprehension amongst firms and other businesses, and therefore the imports then increased while consumer spending went down a bit in the US in the past few months ever since the tariffs have been imposed?
No, I think that is correct. Imports have gone up. We have statistics from the Department of Commerce. And typically when imports go up, simply suggests that domestic spending is down because people are buying from outside, and that impacts the GDP in a negative way. And that is what we have observed indeed. So you're absolutely right. People did react to the anticipation of the tariffs going up very significantly. Imports did go up. Consumer confidence is still positive, 1.8%, but it is less than what people expected. So you are again right. Market sentiment is negative. Imports did go up in anticipation of tariffs. And the result of these two, combined with some other factors, indeed can result in the GDP going down as contrast to it going up plus 0.4%, which is what the market was expecting.
Professor Mahajan, what really is the road ahead then for the United States of America as it tries to settle some of these tariff conversations with countries across the world? But the main stickler would, of course, continue to be China, as has been seen in the past 5 years as well. This is not the first time Donald Trump has started a tariff war with China.
No, you're absolutely right again. And the path ahead really depends upon the outcome of the tariff negotiations. As I have said in the past, tariffs, the question remains, are tariffs an end or are they a means to an end? And while the administration, in particular Peter Navarro, who's the advisor on tariffs to the president, claims that tariffs are the end, it seems to me that they are a device to negotiate. So as to what will happen in the future really depends upon the outcome of the negotiations which the US is having with other countries, and in particular with China, where really things are quite uncertain because it seems the Chinese somehow at this juncture might be dragging their feet again as a part of negotiating strategy. So the path ahead clearly depends upon the outcome of the negotiations related to tariffs with not just China, but Southeast Asian countries and Europe, Canada, Mexico as well. So the jury is still very much out. We really don't know what the outcome will be, but that will to a large extent determine. American economy by and large is healthy. The infrastructure is working, employment is very strong, inflation is somewhat curbed, although the question about the role of the Fed is a question mark because on one hand, there is a feeling that inflation needs to be contained. We are still not down to the level where the Fed would want it, and that will result in the Fed having to increase the interest rates. But the flip side of that is the dual mandate of the Fed is full employment, and if all this impacts the employment going down, the Fed will have to reduce the interest rates. So the Fed is kind of in a fix. Of course, the political pressure on the Fed from the Trump administration is to reduce the interest rates, which I don't see anytime in the near future, although 2 rate cuts are expected this year. But the upshot of the path forward really depends upon the negotiations which emerge related to trade. Tariffs are really a key variable at this juncture.
All right, Professor Mahajan, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX World with that perspective. We leave it there and shift our focus.